Highgate Vampire. So this is a article I'm reading off realbritishghost.com on this case. So Highgate Vampire. First reports of the Highgate Vampire in the 1960s and early 1970s. Many people reported to the local newspaper, the Hampstead and Highgate Express, that in the early evening they'd seen a figure that they took to be the Highgate Vampire inside Highgate's Western Cemetery. The phantasm was described as a tall, red-eyed man wearing a black cloak and tall black hat. When the newspaper published the reports, thousands of people flocked to the cemetery in the hope of catching a glimpse. At that time, the Western Cemetery was in an appalling condition. The graves and tombs were overgrown, and the graveyard was vandalized. Bones could often be seen falling out of rotting coffins, and also from those coffins that had deliberately been set ablaze by vandals. Highgate is one of the oldest and grandest cemeteries in London, probably in the UK. It's where a lot of the so-called great and good of their day are often buried there. Even George Michael was buried there fairly recently, and also fairly famous for the grave of Karl Marx. So let's just read on. A group calling itself the British Psychic and Occult Society decided to investigate the Highgate Vampire. Members visited the cemetery one night, cast a protective circle and attempted to invoke the demon. The police had been warned, and when they turned up, the society members ran away. Their president, David Farrant, was caught and arrested. A wooden stake was found in his possession. It was pretty obvious the use to which they planned to put it. Through the vampire's heart, of course. At the subsequent court case, Farrant was acquitted because Highgate Cemetery was legally open to the public at any time of the day or night. Well, I don't really see why they should have arrested him in the first place. If they were to say vampires don't exist, then he's messing about, wasting his time. If they do exist, I don't think sticking a stake in its heart is such a bad thing. But that's just me. The society allegedly gave up its investigations of the vampire in 1973. However, he was charged with maliciously damaging a memorial, interfering with a dead body, attempting to influence witnesses, and more seriously, possession of a firearm. For this latter offence, Farrant spent some time in prison. One writer, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, in her book Vampires Among Us, suggested that the Highgate Vampire was nothing more than Farrant in costume, because the sightings ceased upon Farrant's incarnation. Well, of course they did. Shades of Dracula, however, David Farrant wasn't the only one looking for the Highgate Vampire. Sean Manchester of the British Occult Society said that he was investigating the phenomena at the cemetery in 1967. He claims to have discovered several girls who had the traditional puncture marks on their necks after they had visited the cemetery. And it's getting very strange. A couple of them even involuntarily sleepwalked in this state. One girl is supposed to have made her way back to the cemetery at night, and Manchester saved her by throwing a crucifix in her path. They're chasing this vampire around. Let's just have a look at some of these. I'll show you these pictures. There's pictures that are on the Daily Star website, and they think that anomaly might be the vampire. You know, people who've lived in a haunted house will know what I'm talking about. It is not nice. But my impression was the vampire is actually a flesh body that has died, that is in the kind of awful state that you would imagine a dead body to be, but through some kind of necromancy can be raised from the dead. What the writing I was just reading didn't actually mention was that there was apparently the vampire had come from Romania, and they actually had followers. They brought it to London because London was a bit more happening than their village in Romania. So just to add to my vampire video, I actually read a bit of the Star article and I found it quite interesting. Highgate Vampire terrified London in the 1970s, but recent sightings suggest the floating spectre has returned. Witnesses say they've been seeing a floating man in a Victorian suit and top hat apparently gliding through locked gates. Legend has it the vampire was a medieval nobleman who had practiced black magic in medieval Romania. He was brought to England in a coffin in the 18th century, but was awoken from the dead by modern Satanists. So, David Farrant, who runs the British Psychic and Occult Society, said he was one of the first to see the so-called vampire in 1969. In a letter to the Hampstead and Highgate Express, he wrote that when passing the cemetery, he had glimpsed a grey figure. He said, "My first reaction was like it was so real that I thought I actually had someone dressed up or messing about, because all these stories about vampire in the news. It was bison branches, but as soon as I turned up, I was aware of something standing there, and it was exuding a feeling not of evil, but menace. It all happened so quickly, the whole thing lasted for 4 to 5 seconds, and felt like whatever it was filled me with energy. It is difficult to explain, and suddenly it vanished." The next year, a charred and headless body of a woman was found nearby. The vampire was never seen again. Or was it? This year, Declan Walsh recalled seeing the vampire walk through a locked gate. He said he was extremely tall, well over 6 feet, and his height was very thin. He wore a long black cape and a coat and a top hat. His dress looked like Victorian style, and he appeared all black. He also appeared to glide. The ground was littered with leaves, yet I heard no sound from him, nor did he take any notice of me. Probably not interested. I think a lot of spirits are kind of like just there to scare people, but if this is a real spirit of some sort, perhaps its primary goal is not to scare people. Anyway, let's finish reading. So, another witness watched this figure float from Swains Lane from the east side to the west side of the cemetery in August 2005. And in 2012, it appeared the vampire was captured on camera. James Dobbin took a photo as he toured the historic Grade I listed cemetery, which dates back to 1830. He was taken aback by the image, which appears to show a ghostly figure under a tree. He said, "We took a lot of photographs, and reviewing them on my laptop, I noticed what looked like the apparition in the background of the photograph. So has the Highgate Vampire returned?" So, interesting.